Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to go through my settings for the Rodecaster Duo that I've basically spent the past 24 hours attempting to get some semblance of what it is that I would like to have for this device with my stream. I do live streaming on a single PC, so I do not have a dual PC setup. With the Rodecaster Duo, I basically want to be able to control my mic audio with a physical slider. I wanted to be able to control Spotify with a physical slider, and I also wanted to be able to control my game and system audio using another physical slider. So I did not want to have to go into OBS to be able to adjust volume settings or anything like that. I wanted it all to be controllable via the Rodecaster. And I'm going to be completely honest, I have had an absolute nightmare with it. This has not been the easiest thing to set up, especially compared to the Go XLR Mini, which is what I was using. And so basically, it has been an absolute nightmare trying to get the routing to work and trying to get this to just run in general with OBS, because OBS does not seem to like the way that the Rodecaster works or the routing for it. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a rundown of exactly what it is that I have done to set up this device. Another thing that I should know is that for my live streams, I predominantly at the moment play single player. So I don't need to have Discord. I don't need to have in-game chat or anything like that. So please note that these settings may not be ideal for the type of gaming that you're looking to do or the type of live streaming you're looking to do. But at the same time, hopefully it might give you some kind of idea of some of the settings and bits and pieces that you need to use to be able to get your setup to work. The more you kind of understand it, the more hopefully it'll enable you to be able to get it to be configured the way that you want it. I was watching a video previously by another YouTuber who has a dual PC setup. I will link his video either in the top corner or I'll do it in the description. But like I said, I had to adjust some of his settings because his stuff was specifically for the dual PC and it wasn't working for my purposes. I'm not sure why. For some reason, it just doesn't seem to work with a single PC setup. So as you can see, so this is the Rodecaster Duo, and I will show you. So this is essentially what I've got. I don't have a separate camera to kind of show you the device itself. So I'm going to use this to kind of demonstrate how I have things physically set up. And then we can go into kind of like the routing and bits and pieces like that. So for my physical device, so as you can see here, so this is where I have my microphone plugged in. So I have a Rode NT1. It is plugged into this port here. I have got the power cable plugged into this port here. But right here is where kind of like the most important part happens. So this is a USB-C. So it's USB-C to USB-C with my particular device. That's the cable that I got with it. So this is port 1. Okay. There is a second port, which is here. Funnily enough, you can actually use 2 USB-C cables into the same PC. So a lot of people who are obviously doing dual PC setups, what they will do is they will run one of these USB-C cables to one PC and they will run the other USB-C cable to the other PC. So that then they get 2 different inputs. However, if you're doing a single PC setup, the issue with having just one cable going to one PC is that then limits your channel options. So what I mean by channels is when you go into your system settings here, you can see that on this, I've got the Rodecaster Duo main stereo. And main stereo is essentially what the Rodecaster calls your, like, basically everything, every kind of audio that is coming from your PC. That is what the main stereo mix is. That is everything. Okay, so that's system sounds, that's game sounds, that's music, that is your microphone as well. So that is what by default, that is what it is configured to. And with the USB-C 1, you also get another channel, which is the Rodecaster Duo chat. So this is basically what you can use to configure your microphone, your chat if you're talking to people through Discord and so on and so forth. So like I said, when you're using one USB-C, you get 2 channels. However, If you use 2 USB-Cs, so if you plug another USB-C into the same computer, that then opens you up for the option of using something called the Rodecaster Duo secondary channel. And basically the way that this works is you can route certain audio functions to the secondary channel, which then means that it has its own slider, it has its own muting capabilities, and it can be put in separately from the main stereo, which is a big plus when you're trying to live stream and you want to have more functionality and more control over individual aspects of your live stream. So that is why, for me personally, I have got 2 USB-Cs plugged in to the same computer. I have 2 USB-C ports at the back of my PC. So for those of you that may not have USB-C, I believe you can do the same thing with USB-C going into a USB-A adapter, but I've not personally tested it. It's just what I've seen sort of like on Reddit and so on and so forth. So hopefully you should be able to do it that way. Oh, also I do have my my earbuds. They are plugged into this port down here. Okay, so to get started with this, I have got a little document to hopefully kind of explain it a little bit more and to make sure that if anything goes awry, I have something to refer back to. But basically, the first thing that you want to do is install the Rode Duo ASIO driver. Now, I don't actually know how much of an effect this had on my installation. I am not an audio expert. I don't quite know how a lot of this works. I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my pants with a lot of this. But I did find that after I'd installed this driver, I was able to get things working the way that I wanted it to, after spending roughly 24 hours trying to get it to run the way that I wanted it. So just be aware, okay? You can choose not to install it if you don't want to, but I do have a suspicion that this may be a key component of this, because I know that OBS just doesn't necessarily communicate as well with the Rodecaster as the Rodecaster does with other programs. So I installed this driver. There is also a plugin with an OBS that you can install as well, but again, I don't know how much of a difference that makes. But basically, the link, which I'll put in the description, or I will also put it up in the corner if I remember, that will take you to this page, and basically it will take you down to your downloads. So it will take you down here, and you just download this zip file. You can then open it up, and you will have there's a small application file. You run the application file, and it will install the driver. If you want to uninstall the driver, just rerun the application, and it will give you the option to modify or uninstall. And you can do that as well. So if you're not too sure about it, then you're more than welcome to do that as well. If you are directly on the Rode website, another option is to go to products, go to interfaces and mixers. Then you can go to the Rodecaster series, and then you can choose. Obviously, you might have the Rodecaster Pro 2 or the Pro. You can click on those, and then, like I said, just go down to the download the download option, and it will be there. I believe it is the same driver for each of them, but just in case, because obviously this may change, just in case, try and go to the one specific for the product that you are using, in case there are any differences. So I have already installed that driver. So the next thing that I need to do is, if I go into this, is I need to factory reset my Rodecaster Duo via the Rode Central application on my PC. If you don't already have the Rode Central application, then it is well worth downloading. Again, you can probably just get it straight from the Rode website. But basically, the way that it works is it will basically take all of the settings that you can adjust on your Rodecaster screen, and it will just enable you to do it all through the PC. It all matches up. So when you change something on the PC, it will change it on the Rodecaster. And if you change something on the Rodecaster on the screen, then it will also change it on the PC whilst it's connected. So it's a pretty simple setup, but yeah, it's well worth using, especially if you need to do the factory reset like we do. So what you're going to want to do is, I'll bring this over here. You're going to want to go into the cog here, which will then take you into your settings, and you want to do the factory reset. Now, the reason for this, and again, it's another one of those things where I don't know how much of an effect it has, but from what I have seen personally in my experience, doing the factory reset makes it so that OBS actually is happy to have the audio inputs. Because if something is slightly wrong with the audio inputs, OBS just doesn't like it, and it just basically craps out. It just stops functioning properly. It gets confused and it stops working fully. So, which is kind of part of the reason why I'm having to now do a factory reset, because the configuration got confused somewhere in the mix. Okay. So I will click the factory reset button, and then what it will do is it will ask me to unplug all of my Rode devices. And once you unplug them, it will then ask you to re-plug in the Rode device that you would like to factory reset. So I guess it's to make sure that you are definitely factory resetting the correct device. So what I'll do, I will quickly run through this now, because obviously that's going to disconnect my microphone, and I'll need to get that back set up in OBS. So if you bear with me, I will be back in just a few minutes. Okay, bye. Okay, and so we are now back. So as you can see, the factory reset has been complete. So we will just click done, and then we will go into the Rodecaster Duo system. And that is, like I mentioned, in the Rode Central application. Okay, so what we're going to want to do now, if we go back to this, you can see here, so we've got configure routing, which is basically in the device configuration and routing menu. So what you're going to want to do is you go into Rode Central. You can do this on your device as well. I just personally find it easier to do it actually on in Rode Central. So you go into device configuration, and then you go into routing. There are more menu options and so on, but we're just going to focus on the routing today, because that's kind of the key thing to get it working with OBS. Okay, so as you can see here, so when you do the factory reset, if you have already fiddled around with settings in here, it doesn't actually necessarily get rid of them for some unknown reason. Not quite sure why. Don't quite know exactly what the factory reset does, but yeah, you get the picture. But yeah, so the main ones that we are going to be focusing on are these three here. So we have got, this is your USB-C 1, which is, as we discussed earlier, your main stereo mix. Then here you've got USB-C 1 chat, which is your chat mix, which is this one here. And then you have got USB-C 2, which is, as I mentioned earlier, the second USB-C cable, which then comes out and is called secondary. Now, oh yeah, it's saved the settings here. So you've got secondary just here. Okay. So like I said, that's 3 channels that you get. And you can basically allocate different things to those particular channels. Right, so we will go into USB-C 1 to start off with. So this is your main stereo mix. Okay, and so for me, so by default, you should be in main mix, but for all of these, we will be working with custom. Mix minus, I have a small understanding of it, which is basically where mix minus removes the same input. So mix minus is basically, it'll have everything else in it. So it'll have these all enabled, but it'll have your USB 1 disabled for this one. It will have your USB chat disabled for this one. Again, I don't quite know how it works. So for me, if I have this disabled, I get absolutely no audio. If I were to have this disabled, I would also get absolutely no audio, and same with the USB 2. However, for those with dual PCs, and the tutorial that I watched the other day that was specifically for dual PCs, it worked for them. So I don't know if it's something specific with the Duo where that's just not configured quite right, because this is still quite a new system. I think it only came out in the last couple of months or so. So that may potentially be why it's not quite working the same way, but this is how I've configured it, and this is how it has worked for me. So for the stereo mix, I have got the microphone turned off because I want that to be going through my my chat mic. I've got, this is sounds. So this is your, where was it? It's the sound pads. So these things here. What a face. But yeah, these are the sound pads basically. So that is what the sounds setting looks like. So I have currently got my sound setting linked to my stereo mix channel. And then here I have my USB-C 1 channel, which is again the stereo mix. So this is what I have enabled, and I have all of the other ones disabled for this particular channel. So I should have sounds coming through, and then I should have basically anything set to default in my settings. So in my sound mixer settings, anything set to default should come through this particular channel. And we will get into changing that later on as well. Then if you go into USB-C 1, and this is the chat channel, I have my I have my microphone linked in, and then I have my USB-C 1 chat audio linked as well. Okay. Everything else is then disabled in this. And then lastly, we go into the USB-C 2, which is the secondary channel. And I have mic disabled, sounds disabled, USB-C 1 disabled, and the chat disabled. And I just only have the USB-C 2 secondary audio enabled. Okay, so that is essentially what I've done in terms of my routing. So if we go back to here, so you can see this is basically just screenshots of how I have it set up. We don't need to go through that again. And now what we need to do is basically have it so that Windows is communicating what we want with the Rodecaster and the general systems. So what you need to do is you can't see it on my screen, but in the bottom corner there is the sound icon, basically where you adjust your volume. You can go through it through there. The other option is if you go into your start menu, you can go in there, and then if you just type in if you go like sound mix options, it will take you to the volume mixer. Okay, so as you can see here, we have got output device and input device. These are the two main things that you want to start off with configuring. Okay, so for output device, you want to have it set to the Rodecaster Duo main stereo. And so the main stereo, if we go back to our routing, is this one here. Okay, so this is where we will have game audio, we will have music, anything that is by default will come through this. And we also then have our sounds as well coming through on here too. And then for input device, you want to put your chat, which again, if we go back to the routing, chat is your microphone and your chat inputs as well. Okay, so that is what I have set up for the basic volume mixer settings. Now, for me personally, I want to have it, as I mentioned, I want to have my Spotify and my music to be on a separate slider to my game and system audio. So another step that I had to take was I had to, once Spotify shows up in here. So to get Spotify to show up in the volume mixer, you have to open the program, and sometimes you actually have to play music before it actually will show up within this particular menu. But once it shows up, all you need to do is just open up here and have it set so you've got your output device to secondary and your input device to secondary. Input device doesn't really make much of a difference to my knowledge. It's just your output at the very least needs to be set to secondary. This will then mean that this channel will control your music and it will control Spotify. Okay, so the next stage that we need to go into is configuring the sound control panel playback and record settings. So again, just go into your start menu, and if you type in control panel, just go into here. There's probably some fancy pants shortcut way of doing it, but that's the way that I do it. And then you can just go into sound from, if you go into the control panel, you need to go into hardware and sound, and then click on the sound menu, and that is when this will be brought up. So for playback, you're going to want to make sure that your Rodecaster Duo main stereo is what is set to default. If you right click it and then, or if I right click on something else, you can see that it's got set as default device. So you'll want to click that, but specifically for the main stereo option. And then for recording, you want to go down and find the microphone which says Rodecaster Duo Chat. And again, you right click. Obviously, this is currently the default, but yeah, you would right click whichever one you wanted to use and set as default device. And so yeah, for recording, I've got this as my default device, which is the Duo chat. Okay, so now we have all of that set up there. We are now going to go into using OBS and how to configure OBS. And this is where things get a little bit sensitive, because in my experience with OBS, you need to be very careful with how you add things with audio inputs, specifically for this device, for the Rodecaster. I have not had issues like this with the Go XLR. I had no problems with this at all. However, for some reason, if you add audio inputs to OBS that are on the same channel, it will confuse everything. And it will basically make it so that you will have audio going through one channel, which actually is not even the channel it's supposed to be going through. You will have it going through multiple channels. And it just, for some, I don't quite know why. I don't know if it's just a limitation of the device. I don't know if it's a limitation in OBS. But either way, it bugs out. It doesn't like it. So what I have ended up having to do is, like I said, you just have to be careful when you're adding your audio inputs and make sure that you don't accidentally add something that is on the same channel. So what I would do personally is, once you have this configured to the way that you like it, just try not adding any more audio inputs, because otherwise, unfortunately, you'll end up having to go all the way back to the beginning where you do the factory reset, and you'll have to go through this rigmarole again, because that is basically what I've had to do. Any time that I accidentally add the wrong input, or it's specifically the audio inputs, that is when I get problems. Okay, so I will drag this over here. You're going to see multiple of me, unfortunately. So as you can see here, this is my microphone. So I'll show you how I've set that up. So it doesn't input it automatically. What I had to do is I went into settings. I then went into audio, and you can see here I've got mic auxiliary audio, and I have my Rodecaster Duo chat mic set up there. Normally what you would then do is press apply, and then this would show up. It will show up as, I think it's like mic/aux. So what you want to do is just go in here, and then you can actually rename. So I renamed mine to the NT1 mic input, because that is the type of microphone that I have. So that is all you need to do on that front. Okay. And now what we need to do is we need to then add our stereo mix, which will be for our game and our system audio. And then we also need to add our secondary channel mix, which will be for our music. So I'm going to go in here. So I'm going to press the plus, so add source. Actually, I don't know if you can see that with my camera. I'll move this over a little bit just so you can see here. So plus, and then you go to audio input capture. So like I said, everything else, you can add different inputs and things like that, and it won't cause an issue with the sound settings once you've got them configured. It is this particular one that you just need to be careful of once you do have your settings in place, because it may very well be, even just sort of like doing a dummy audio input, it can cause problems, because it will try and use your default channel, and then that is where the confusion starts kicking in. So I am going to go to audio input capture, okay, and I will name this, let's see, what did I name it before? So we will do game slash, actually if we go game slash stereo mix, okay, then we press OK, and then this will then open up what device. So we want this to be our main, from our main stereo. So that is the channel that we want to use. So press OK, and then you can see here that that has added a new audio input for our OBS system. Now, as you can see, obviously my mic is still only showing up in this area. What we will do is afterwards we will run a couple of tests just to make sure that it is all working as it should be. But so we've got the game stereo mix right here. Then we are going to add another audio input capture. This one is going to be our music slash secondary mix. Okay, so we press OK, and then we are then going to choose the Rodecaster Duo secondary. Okay, and press OK. Right, so as you can see here, we now have 3 things in our audio input. Right, okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to unmute my music channel, okay, and I'm going to quickly just bring up Spotify over here, and I've got some Harris Heller stream beats going on. So I will quickly, I was already playing it, but if I raise my physical slider that I have configured to the USB-C, to the USB-C 2, which is the secondary channel, you should hopefully, typically I think I've gone for quite a quiet selection, but if I move it further and if I stop talking, you should hear and see that this is moving. And now I'm going to lower the slider, and you can see that that has now stopped the music. So I'm going to pause it on Spotify on that end. So that is perfect. So that means that that is running exactly how I wanted it to. So now the next thing that we are going to test out is to see if our game and stereo mix is working. So what I'm going to do is I am going to try and open up a game. As you can see, I've got Hollow Knight running at the moment, and I'm going to now unmute my game and system audio. Hopefully this should work. So I'm going to gradually up the slider, and you can now hear the Hollow Knight music in the background. Okay, and if I reconfigure this, okay, so when I drag this over, hopefully, there we go. So you can see here where my game stereo mix is moving. If I stop talking, okay, and then I will lower it, and that is now using the physical slider, that is now at the lowest possible point. And then what I can do is if I raise it up again, I can then just straight up mute it, and as you can see, it just completely went. Right, okay, and also, so I do actually have my sounds configured to work with the USB 1. But also I do have a physical slider for that too. So if I unmute that slider and raise it up, then we should see on the game stereo mix, obviously we do have the Hollow Knight gameplay music in the background, but if we do crickets, you can see that kind of consistent movement. And that is because I've got my sound panels set up again as a separate slider. So I currently have 4 sliders set up. I have my mic set up as one slider, so I can adjust my volume on that. My second slider is then configured to my sounds. So that is where I can use my effects and things like that, which is part of the reason why I really wanted to get this, because I thought it'd be quite a fun thing to have as part of my live stream engagement sort of thing. You know, you can have sounds and effects and things like that. So that is on my second dial. And then on the third one, that is where I have got my Spotify and my music set up. So that is configured for the USB-C 2 or the secondary channel. And then the slider for my fourth one is the USB-C 1, which again is the main stereo. So yeah, so that is essentially how I have set up my Rodecaster Duo. It's not perfect because, like I said, one of the big issues that I do have is if you do try and add another audio input capture, it doesn't like it, and I end up having to start from the beginning. However, in its current format, if I don't fiddle around with it any further, it works perfectly. You know, I have the control using my sliders. I don't have to go into OBS and, you know, click mute or anything like that, because that's really the whole reason that I wanted to have a device that has physical sliders on it. It's because I wanted to be able to, at the push of a button, mute something rather than having to tab out of my game and then go into something else and then mute from there or adjust the volume from there. That is what I wanted to do. I know that there was someone in someone else's video that mentioned about alerts, so I'll quickly go over that as well. So I actually have my alerts set up via Streamlabs. So they come in through a browser thing, a browser input, and basically I configure the volume for those alerts using the Streamlabs menus rather than doing it within my OBS and doing it with my sliders and stuff, because then generally there's no nasty surprises, because I mean typically the game audio kind of is around about the same for most games that I've been playing recently, at least. So yeah, so that's basically how I've set it up. I've not got it so that I've got alerts running in OBS. I don't know if there's another way that you could do it where that would function with this. But yeah, it's one of those peace of mind things where like I've configured it in something else. I don't want it running through OBS and needing more configuration on that part. But yeah, so that's basically it. And I can quickly show you as well. So you can see for my audio setup here, this is what so this is basically a digital representation of my physical sliders. So as I mentioned before, mic for the first one, I've got my sounds for the second one, then I've got this one, which would be my Spotify music one, but is also the secondary channel, and then this one is my stereo mix, and then I've got my chat mic as a virtual one, but I don't really use that personally. So I hope that this was kind of helpful in some way, shape or form. Like I said, I mean, me and my husband spent a very long time trying to get this to work the way that I wanted it to, because going from one device to another and finding that the new device has limitations that you weren't quite expecting, it's a bit gut-wrenching. And I struggled to find anywhere that had sort of like really like good settings for a single PC setup. Everywhere that I saw was generally talking about dual PC. So hopefully this has been helpful to you in some way, shape or form. Even if it's helped one person, I'll be absolutely thrilled. But yeah, we'll just have to kind of see if there are any more updates that come from Rode with regards to this product, because there are definitely limitations compared to other streaming sort of devices on the market. I know that this isn't specifically really meant for live streaming. It is more for as a podcast device. But given the fact that it is being marketed for streaming, it would be really, really good if they could put some more stuff in. I did see that somewhere they were saying that they might start doing some more virtual channels and things like that, but we're just going to have to wait and see. And fingers crossed, when they do release something, it doesn't just break OBS even more. But yeah, we will just have to wait and see. So like I said, I really, really hope that this video was helpful to you. If you did like it, do please leave a like below. And also, like, let me know how you're getting on. I can't guarantee that I can help anyone who does run into any issues, because like I said, I've only had this for like 24 hours, and this is just what I've been able to come up with in the past day. So I can't guarantee that I'll be able to help troubleshoot or anything, but if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. And like I said, if you've got any suggestions as well, I would be more than happy to hear them, because like I said, if there's a way of making it so that it's a little bit more streamlined, then perfect. I would love to know. So yeah, thank you very much again for watching, and I hope that this has been help, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.